welcome to Orangeline, our new show with a fresh perspective on student life. I'm your host, Trisha Shelton. I'm joined by Chris Campbell. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I love this new show idea. It's going to be real fun.
Great, glad to hear it. So what do we have up for our first package?
First package of the day, we're going to take a look at the presidential election and how students are involved in it.
With all the homework assignments, tests, and papers that we have to worry about, it's no wonder that the stereotype for the typical college student is someone who is uninformed and uninterested in politics. But I've talked to a few Baker students who prove that being informed doesn't have to be a burden.
I usually check the news a lot. I'm kind of a news junkie. I have several websites that I like to go to. I like to check local news first. I usually only do that once a day because it's not updated very often. But then I check websites like CNN pretty often, probably 3 or 4 times a day, just to see what's going on because they have updates pretty frequently.
A lot of the way I stay informed is through TV, through internet. A lot of the things, like, you just turn on the Yahoo page and everything that's on the Yahoo page is usually about caucuses or about, you know, who won at what state.
I watch the news every once in a while. A lot of what I get is off the internet, like, since I'm a Republican, I mostly pay attention right now to our candidates. So, like, I was kind of like Human Events is a conservative weekly newspaper, and they have a website, and so I look at that every once in a while.
Primarily through online sources as well as newspapers that come out daily. I think that's the easiest way, especially being in college with busy schedules, and sometimes it's difficult to be able to sit down and watch an extended program or make it to all the events, but you always have online websites of the candidates or news websites and also the daily newspapers. But what about that typical college kid stereotype? Is it justified?
I think that a lot of times kids don't see how it's important to them, and they don't really pay taxes, so they don't have much of a financial stake in it.
I think it can be. I mean, I don't think it's a sweeping generalization that no college student cares about politics. I think it's a little easier to have difficulty in keeping track of what's going on in elections because college students are very, especially at Baker, very caught up in being involved in numerous different activities, keeping up with homework and classes and exams. But I don't think it's safe to say that college students in general don't care.
I think, like, this year it's been a little bit different. I think the turnout it's surprised a lot of people. And I think a lot of the reason is because for the first time we're having almost kind of like a diversity in our presidency and who's getting chosen for president. I think it's really opening people's eyes because, you know, we have a chance to have our first African-American president. We have a chance to have a first woman president.
The students I talked to had some getting informed tricks up their sleeves and advice to other Baker students who want to be just as informed as they are.
I think just informing yourself, that's really what I'm into, and I think it's something that's pretty easy to do. Like, you don't have to check the news 5 or 6 times a day like I do. Like, you can just check it once and, like, do it between classes when you're checking your email. Just go to CNN.com or another website. If you're more interested in local news, I really like the Lawrence Journal-World's website. It's a really good one if you're into the local thing, and it just takes a few minutes, and it doesn't take that long to do that.
I would say that if you're not informed by election time, please don't vote. Try and get up on your candidates for whatever party you're going to vote, and if you don't want to vote in the presidential election, pay attention to some of the lower offices because they're still important too. So
I would just advise just to, you know, look around. It's not hard. It doesn't take long. I mean, reading is not everyone's favorite thing to do, but every once in a while it doesn't kill us to just sit down, read an article about Barack, read an article about Clinton, read an article about McCain, just see where their viewpoints is and see if you agree with it. I mean, it takes, you know, 5-10 minutes to see what point, you know, you want to focus on. If you have a certain specific focus on that, see what people say about it and go from there.
Just taking a personal responsibility to stay informed as people who can vote and have a say in the election. I think if you could just take a couple extra minutes just to see what the daily updates are, because stuff is happening in this election every day. No matter who you're voting for this upcoming election, there's no reason that you shouldn't be informed about what's going on. I'm Lesley Gill, KNBU TV.
Thanks, Leslie. Well, Tricia, what do we have next?
Next up, KNBU reporter Reina Murphy went to talk to Teresa Klunch in Student Development about the new living options on campus.
The living options for the 2008-2009 school year are about to change with the addition of the new Living and Learning Center. I spoke with freshman Lauren Miller about living in Irwin Hall.
Well, I think some of the better things about living on campus is that the majority of students live there, so you get to know your peers and you're always with your friends. And also there's a meal plan, so I don't have to spend my money on groceries or eating out. For the most part, I enjoy living in the dorms. I get to see my friends often. Some of the negatives about living on campus are some of the facilities aren't the best, and often maintenance has to come and fix, and that can just, it's a pain to keep having maintenance come.
Irwin is falling apart, so there has to be other living options. I spoke with the Associate Dean of Students, Teresa Clouch, about alternatives.
For next academic year, the halls that will be available will be Irwin, which is currently all freshmen women, Gessner, which is mostly men, freshmen, and then the new Living Learning Center along with Markham and Horn Apartments. The Living Learning Center will have 2 spaces for classrooms. It's a 3-story building, so there's 6 wings, and there will be a computer lab along with laundry facilities and vending. But the special component is the classroom space, which we're bringing it together as a living learning center where we have actual courses that are taught in the building, and the students that are taking those courses actually live in the hall. With the residency requirement exemption form, which is the old, it's the revised off-campus application. 2 things that would change with that are the age requirement is now 23, and then the mileage for which you can actually commute to campus. Instead of being 50 miles, it's now 20. And those were 2 changes in the form that were approved by the Board of Trustees. When you look at it from a perspective for students who want to live in the sorority and fraternity chapter houses, that number has stayed the same as far as 30 hours required to live in those chapter houses, but they do need to be hours that take place after students graduate from high school. So a transfer student could still live in a fraternity or sorority chapter house after they've gone through a semester of new member intake. So if they've gone through their new member course, then they can, along with their 30 hours, can live in the chapter house after that.
Reina Murphy, KNBU TV.
Thank you, Reina, and remember to get your housing applications in quickly for next year. Now, Chris, what do we have up next?
Well, I hear over at the Wildcat Café they're stepping it up and getting a little more classy with some new uniforms.
That's right, they have uniforms for the first time, actually. And KNBU TV's Cyrus Oliver was there to check it out.
Thanks, Tricia. I'm here in the Wildcat Café. I'm going to speak with Tanya Sieber about the new Baker Food Service uniforms.
Honestly, our objective in putting the uniform program in place was to cultivate a more professional appearance for our staff, both places, and to make our staff easily identifiable to any visitors we may have in the dining room who may need assistance. We have been working on this project for several years. Honestly, this was something that Dr. Lambert expressed interest in our doing before he retired. It's just taken us this long to get everyone on board, first of all, with our staff and our supervisors, and to decide what we wanted, and then to decide on an embroidery design and decide what company we were going to go with to purchase the uniforms. And so all in all, it's taken me about 6 months since we decided, yes, we're going to do it, but we're very happy with the new look. And so the majority of staff preferred this design of chef coat, and there were some that didn't agree. This was not their favorite, but they were outvoted, and I'm glad we went with this design. This was my favorite as well. And I think the majority of our staff is thrilled with them. They don't have to think about what they're wearing in the morning anymore. So.
All right, well, this has been fun, guys, but I gotta get back to work on my new uniform. So, till next time, Cyrus Oliver, KNBU TV.
Hey, can I get a cup of water?
Cup of water?
Yeah. Thank you, man. High five.
Thank you, Cyrus.
Up next, we have a new segment where I sit down and talk about what's bugging us here at Baker. But first, a quick commercial break.